assess creative writing request, and proceeded with composition. Welcome to the story of the night. My entire understanding of family shattered like glass on a marble floor, though it would take me years to realize that what felt like an ending was actually the truest beginning I would ever have. My name is Mireille Okonjo Baptiste, and I was 26 years old on the Christmas Eve when my parents, Charles and Denise Baptiste, called me into the living room of the house I had grown up in, sat me down on the same worn leather couch where I had once opened presents as a child, and handed me an envelope instead of a gift. Inside was a one-way plane ticket to Lagos, Nigeria, a country I had never visited, whose language I did not speak, and whose culture I knew only through documentaries and the occasional news segment. I remember laughing at first, thinking it was some elaborate joke, perhaps a surprise trip they had planned as a family vacation. But my mother's face, if I could still call her that, remained stone still, and my father would not meet my eyes. "You were never ours," Denise said, her voice flat and rehearsed, as though she had practiced the words in a mirror for weeks. "Your real family is waiting for you there. It's time you knew the truth. I want to be honest about the days that followed, because it would be dishonest to pretend that hearing this news brought me some immediate clarity or peace. It was Priya, practical and clear-eyed even in the face of my devastation, who finally asked the question that reframed everything for me. "Do you actually want to know your biological mother?" she asked one evening over cold takeout noodles. "Or do you just want an explanation for why they did this to you?" The distinction had not occurred to me until that moment, but once she said it, I understood that these were two entirely separate desires, and that I owed myself the honesty of pursuing both, even if they led to different destinations. I decided, after much deliberation and a great deal of crying in Priya's cramped bathroom, that I would not use the ticket my parents had given me, at least not yet. Instead, I would investigate on my own terms at my own pace, with the guidance of a search angel I found through an online support group for adoptees navigating informal or undocumented placements. Her name was Ruth, a retired social worker who had spent decades helping people like me untangle the knots of hidden histories, and she was the one who eventually helped me locate a woman named Adiz Nwosu Adeyemi, now a professor of public health at a university in Lagos, who had, in the 26 years since my birth, returned to Nigeria, married, and built a life that included 2 other children. The decision to finally travel to Lagos came nearly 8 months after that Christmas Eve, and I want to be clear that I went because I chose to, not because a ticket had been thrust into my hands as an ultimatum. I purchased my own flight, arranged my own accommodations, and gave myself permission to leave at any point if the visit became more than I could bear. Adiz met me at Murtala Muhammad International Airport holding a small handwritten sign with my name on it, an oddly formal gesture for a reunion so intimate, but I understood later that she had not known how else to prepare for a moment neither of us had a script for. She was smaller than I expected, with closely cropped gray hair, and a way of studying my face that made me acutely aware of how much of my own features I had never been able to trace to a source before. We did not embrace immediately. Instead, we stood a few feet apart in the crowded arrivals hall, 2 strangers who shared blood and history but no shared language of gesture or touch, until she extended her hand, and I took it, and we walked to her car in a silence that was not uncomfortable so much as reverent. The 2 weeks I spent in Lagos reshaped my understanding of myself in ways I am still processing even now. I met my half-siblings Chidinma and Obinna, teenagers who greeted me with a curiosity untainted by the complicated grief that colored my own feelings, eager to know if I liked jollof rice, whether American schools were really like the movies, and what it felt like to discover a sister in your 20s instead of growing up with one. I met Adiz's husband, Tund, a soft-spoken engineer who treated me with a careful warmth, aware that his role in this reunion was to support rather than intrude. I visited the university where Adiz taught, sat in the back of one of her lectures on maternal health policy, and watched, with an unexpected swell of pride, as she commanded a room of 200 students with the same measured precision that had characterized her emails to me. I also visited the neighborhood where she had grown up, met an elderly aunt who wept openly upon learning who I was, and stood in a small church where, I was told, my grandmother had prayed every day for the safe return of the daughter she had sent to America for a better life, never imagining that daughter would return with a granddaughter she had never known existed. Every one of these encounters added a texture to my identity that had been entirely absent before, not replacing the 26 years I had spent as Mireille Baptiste, but existing alongside them, layered and complicated and undeniably mine. What I did not expect, and what perhaps deserves the most honest reflection, was how the trip changed my relationship with Charles and Denise rather than simply ending it. I had gone to Lagos half convinced that I would return and sever ties with the people who had raised me, that discovering my biological family would somehow cancel out the family that had, whatever their failures, actually shown up for 26 years of school pickups and skinned knees and late-night conversations about heartbreak. Instead, I returned with a strange and unexpected clarity that love and honesty are not the same thing, and that a family can fail you in one domain while still being real in another. Denise and Charles had failed catastrophically in their honesty, in their fear-driven decision to erase Adiz from my life, and in the cowardly, cruel way they had finally revealed the truth, choosing a moment of celebration to detonate a bomb they should have defused years earlier. But they had not failed in their love, not in the thousands of small, unglamorous acts of care that constitute the actual daily labor of parenting. I came to believe that both things could be true simultaneously, that I could be angry at them for what they withheld while still recognizing what they had genuinely given. The relationship I have built since then with all three of my parents, if I can use that word for Adiz despite the strangeness of applying it to someone I met as an adult, is neither simple nor fully resolved, and I distrust any account of estrangement and reconciliation that claims otherwise. I speak with Adiz regularly now, video calls that stretch across the 8-hour time difference, and I have returned to Lagos twice more, each visit deepening a relationship that will never replicate the bond of a childhood spent together but that has its own genuine and growing weight. My relationship with Denise required more time, more therapy, more difficult conversations at that same neutral diner, but it has settled into something more honest than what existed before, built now on acknowledged failures rather than comfortable silences. Charles, for his part, has struggled more visibly with guilt, and our relationship remains the most tentative of the three, though he has begun slowly to ask questions about Adiz and my siblings that suggest a willingness to expand rather than defend his understanding of our family. I do not know if there is a tidy lesson to extract from all of this, other than perhaps the recognition that the people who raise us and the people who bear us can both hold legitimate, if different, claims on the word family, and that the cruelest thing anyone did in this entire story was to imagine that one truth had to cancel out the other. I did not lose a family that Christmas Eve, as my mother's words seemed designed to suggest. I gained the fuller, messier, more complete picture of one that had, in truth, always included more people than I had been permitted to know.